Hello, and welcome to another pottery video featuring this little baby mic. I wanted to start this one off a little bit different than I normally do by doing some talking head and explaining maybe why I don't, I guess, do I have to explain myself why I don't post regularly on YouTube? I feel like I do. I feel like when I set out on this, YouTube journey, I wanted to be able to make long form content because when I was 16, 15 years ago, and I was getting into pottery, there were two YouTubers at the time. One of them was Simon Leach, and this other guy, Shin Chin Lin. Sorry if I butchered that name. They helped me out immensely, and I was somewhat self-taught at that age. I only had a semester of it in high school, and then I bought a wheel. So I really spent a lot of time digesting all of this pottery knowledge from YouTube. And at the time, YouTube was just a completely different platform. This was in like 2009. I think it was pre-Google. So my goal was just to be able to make long form pottery videos and show some tips and tricks that I've learned throughout my 15 years of pottery, and help maybe a few people the same way that I was helped when I started. Well, it turns out I'm also trying to run a small pottery business and I'm doing social media posts. At this point in time, I would say I'm split 50-50 between doing social media stuff and doing pottery related things. Not that they're not intertwined. I just have such a hard time focusing on one task at a time, and I'll often be doing 5 different things at once, and then I'll put something on the back burner. And that has been a lot of these like long form YouTube videos. But rounding back, I got this plate commission from a restaurant in Portland maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and it was to make 50 dinner plates. And I really wanted to document it to show some of the things that I've picked up over the years making plates, because they can be pesky and they can be super annoying. And honestly, they're not my favorite thing to make, but they're extremely useful. And everyone, maybe not everyone, but people in general need plates to eat off of. So without further ado, here is my video about making plates. Thanks for listening to my whole spiel, and I hope it is helpful to somebody out there. First things first, we gotta weigh out 52-pound balls of clay. I'll cut them straight from the block, and once I've got them all weighed out, I will wedge them up. I know some people believe that you don't have to wedge clay that's straight out of the bag, but I ain't one of those people. I like to wedge all my clay to align particles, to remove air bubbles, and to get things moving in the right direction. After the clay is all prepped, I'll toss the balls in this 5-gallon bucket so I can safely store them and I don't run the risk of the clay getting hard. And just like that, we're ready to throw. Once I've got my bat securely attached to that clay pad, I'll toss down my clay and start coning it up and down to get it on center. So this is the part of my plate making that I might do differently than other people. I like to use my fist to drag the clay across the surface of the bat. This ensures that I don't leave any air trapped underneath. And once I've established the base of the plate, I'll go back in and use my finger to push in the clay, giving myself enough to pull up a lip. I make sure to remove all that slip and compress the bottom with this metal rib. And then I'll go back in with this rubber rib just to flatten out the lip a little bit and refine the shape. These plates will dry out on their wooden bats for a few days, rotating them every so often and covering them with plastic until they become a perfect leather hard consistency. I prefer to throw my plates on these wooden bats because it helps suck moisture out of the clay from the middle as opposed to a plastic bat, so that's something to keep in mind. But you do you. So it is a few days later and these plates are finally ready to trim. Unfortunately, I had to run my wire back through the bottom because they're still a little bit wet, but it wasn't too much of an issue to pop them off. I use this bat sandwich technique to flip them over. That way I don't run the risk of distorting the rim or the shape. And I attach this bottom bat using bat pins. I prefer to trim my plates on bats because I really don't want to distort the shape, and popping a super flat plate off of a wheel head is very hard. And here I was being a fool, thinking I could trim this plate without putting down lugs. Surely, I knocked it off center, so now later on I'm attaching the lugs. And now that we're securely in place, I can go back to trimming. I tend to throw my plates pretty thin because I don't want to remove too much clay after the throwing. I'm just refining the shape and trying to match the inside of the plate to the outside. You'll also notice that I don't carve foot rings into my plates. I just leave a flat bottom, and this is for a few reasons, but mainly it helps my plates not warp, and they lie flat when they get fired in the kiln. So after we're all smooth, I'll sandwich the bats again and just pop it off the wheel head. I'll throw it back on just to smooth out the rim a little bit, and just like that, we're all done. By some sort of miracle, all the plates are done, all 50, they're all stacked up and they're bone dry and ready to be bisque fired. So I had to learn the hard way by losing plates in the bisque fire that what works for me is just flat stacking them and just having 3 or 4 in a pile. There were a few firings in my past where I'd try to pile on 10 or 12 and the bottom 3 under all that weight had just cracked and warped. I've heard of people stacking them on the sides of the walls, but let's be honest, you're not saving that much space, and if you're going to take all that time to throw all these plates, you might as well just do it the right way and not lose them to the firing. Now that we're all loaded up, I can shut the lid and cover up the peepholes. Don't forget to take a picture for Instagram. And depending on your kiln and your settings, I have a scut. So I'll just do a cone fire to 05 with a 30-minute preheat. And I like to fire these at a slow setting just in case there's any moisture left in the pots. done? Is it all done? Is the kiln all done? What are you doing? A few days later, and voila, our bisque fire is all done, and these bad Larrys are ready for some wax. And with a huge sigh of relief, none of the plates cracked and none of them warped, and that's one firing down with no loss of plates. Now for the most fun part, just kidding, this is not the most fun part, the waxing. I'm choosing to leave the rims bare on these plates, so I just do a quick wipe of wax resist on the rims, and I use this bowl underneath to help me raise it up from the wheel head to make waxing just a little bit easier because these plates are so flat. As soon as the rims are all dried, I'll flip them over and then wax the foot. And after that wax is all dry, these are ready for some glaze. I've found it incredibly helpful, like most pots, to make 5-gallon buckets of glaze for dipping. It's just the fastest, most efficient way to get an even coating of glaze on your pots. So depending on the size of your plates, I would say a 5-gallon bucket will suffice for a 10-inch plate. If you've got more than that, there are other ways that you can glaze plates that are equally effective, but using tongs and dipping is my preferred method. I do a quick little wipe of any residue left over. And these are basically ready for the kiln. It's so crucial to have flat kiln shelves for firing plates. I've heard and I've experienced many sad stories of plates sagging and warping to match the curve of the kiln shelf. You'll notice I don't put wash on my shelves because I flip them after each firing. That way I can rotate and even out the shelf. Which is a bit of a mixed bag, because if you don't put kiln wash, you run the risk of getting glaze on your shelves. But if you do put kiln wash and you're flipping them, you run the risk of the kiln wash flaking off from the bottom of the shelf into the tops of your pots. And I don't want to offend any kiln wash lovers out there. These are just things that I've picked up over the years when firing my kiln and firing plates in particular. Now that we're all loaded up, flipped on the kiln, I'll kiss it goodnight and wait for the results. For the most part, when I open up a kiln, it does feel like Christmas morning, but when I'm working on these large commissions, a part of me dreads it. I don't want anything to go wrong, and I always make sure to throw at least 5 extra of the number that I'm told. So in this case, I made 55 plates, and I was left with 5 extra that I was able just to gift to the restaurant. In the end, I was super happy with these results, and the restaurant was happy as well. I am pleased to report. I really love this matte white glaze, and I love the contrast with this dark brown clay. I hope this video was helpful for you. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment with any questions.